Hi, this is A New Nigeria with Wale Oluwade. This is your current affairs program where we critically examine strategic issues that bedevil Nigeria's developmental aspirations and boldly offer simple, practical, but audacious ideas on building the Nigeria of our collective desires. On today's episode of the program, I'll be speaking on an issue that I think is extremely vital, affecting the southwest part of Nigeria. I'll take this short break, and when I return, I'll get right into it. Please stay with me. Welcome back. So I'm speaking today on what I've titled Sharia Courts and Southwest Nigeria. In this present Nigerian socio-economic space, the 6 southwest states of Nigeria remains the most peaceful, safe, and secure for living and doing business. It also remains the region without any full-scale social crisis, region banditry, terrorism, insurgency, communal clashes, etc. These are actual facts, and quite obvious to anybody. Of course, this is not excluding, the occasional criminal incidents of armed robberies, ritual killings, herder-farmer clashes, activities of fraudsters, seasonal political, tensions, etc., which are common in every society the world over. Yet, overall, the southwest region is generally safe and secure, relative and in stark comparison to the remaining 5 regions of Nigeria. Now, there seems to me, and I must say to many others too, certain elements, Yorubas also, who have decided to collaborate with external forces to infiltrate and introduce religious fanaticism as the instrument of choice to destabilize the relative safety, security, and prosperity of the region, of the southwest region. These individuals are clamoring for the creation of Sharia courts in the southwest to adjudicate on certain personal matters among Yoruba Muslims. They claim it is their constitutional right and that Yoruba Muslims generally demand for it because they are being sidelined. Now, one of the leading proponents of this clamor for Sharia courts in Southwest is certain Judge Abdurrahim Shayi, the Qadi of Sharia Court of Appeal in Kwara State, stated, and I quote, "Muslims in Lagos, Osun, and Ogun states, where they form a significant part of the population, should not be denied legal structures such as Sharia courts where their personal and family matters can be addressed." End of quote. So, does it mean that there are currently no legal structures that addresses Muslim matters in Lagos, Osun, and Ogun states? Now, he proceeds, and I quote once again, "Sharia panels are not substitutes for courts, but functions by contract, where attendance is voluntary. However, once a person participates in the proceedings, the decisions becomes binding." So, end of quote. Now, in essence, if a Muslim is dissatisfied with the outcome of a Sharia court, appeal to the normal court system is foreclosed. Then, how is the Sharia decision, enforced? And after the introduction of Sharia courts, the natural consequence is the establishment of, Sharia police, otherwise called Hizbah, in the northern part of Nigeria. And then, of course, if you set up the Hizbah to enforce the decision of the Sharia courts, before you know it, this is how regression to a full-blown Islamic state, begins. Furthermore, this Qadi declares with the authority and finality of God that, and I quote, "the approval of state authorities or traditional rulers are not needed to establish Sharia panels in the Southwest." End of quote. Really? So we have, in essence, a sovereign authority operating within, the sovereign entity called Nigeria. That's quite interesting, isn't it? Now, he proceeds further and states, quite sadly and most shockingly, that, and I quote, "there is no single provision for Muslims in the family laws of the Southwest. It's as if we're second-class citizens or do not belong to these states of the Southwest." End of quote. That's quite amazing. So I ask, How have the Muslims of southwest Nigeria, from the times of my grandfather, my father, and myself until now, been resolving their family/legal issues or disputes? Some Yoruba Muslims of my father's age bracket were and are some of the best legal minds on this side of the savannah. I mean, there was a certain Professor Teslim Elias, the first Attorney General of the Federation from 1960, all the way to 1972. In fact, at some point from 1966, he was appointed Dean of the Faculty of Law of the University of Lagos, and at the same time combined this with his position as Attorney General of the Federation until 1972. And then he was appointed Chief Justice of Nigeria, 1972-75. And from there, he proceeded to the World Court, where he rose to become Vice President of the International Court of Justice, eventually becoming the President. Did Dr. or Professor Teslim Elias ever complain of being sidelined or being marginalized as a Muslim? And of course, we have a former Egba man, Prince Bola Ajibola, who also was Attorney General under General Babangida, eventually also going on to the International Court of Justice. Did he ever complain of being sidelined? And then, of course, you have, Egba man, MK Abiola. I don't know any Nigerian who built more mosques and did more for Islam than Chief MK Abiola. I never heard Abiola complain of being sidelined or marginalized as a Muslim. And of course, you have Gani Fawemi, the enfant terrible, of Nigerian rights activism in this country. Did Gani Fawemi ever complain of being sidelined? Did anybody ever contemplate, to do that to Gani Fawemi? And he will take it lying low. And of course, you have our current president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Who would dare to sideline him or trample on his rights as a Muslim? So these were and are religiously, from what this Kadi is saying, are these people sidelined or marginalized or oppressed in southwest Nigeria? Finally, the Kadi accused those who are against their demands, such as myself speaking here. He says that what we're doing is an expression of Islamophobia, end of quote. Now, to be fair, the founder of MURIC, that is Muslim Rights Concerns, Professor Ishaq Akintola, a man for whom I have little or scant regard, reacted to this controversy and stated as follows, I quote, "This is a deliberate attempt to create tension because in reality, nobody is planning to inaugurate Sharia court. What is being planned in Oyo town is Sharia panel. It is only the state or federal government that has the constitutional power to create a court." This is strange because it is Professor Ishaq Akintola who usually will say what this Kadi, was saying. But here it's sounding even more reasonable, admitting that only the states and federal government have the power to create courts in direct, conflict with what the former or the judge has been saying. Now, even the Sultan of Sokoto, His Eminence Muhammad Saad Abubakar III, has weighed in, wondering why there is a big, deal on this issue, and that Southwest Muslims have a right to a Sharia court. So, having said all of this as a background, here's my response. How did we get here? How did religion become a topical issue in Yoruba land, threatening our unity and security? Are there any ulterior motives to this entire controversy? To most Yoruba families, religion is a personal choice, and this choice is left to the discretion of individuals that constitutes the family, either nuclear or extended. Yorubas have never believed in religious intolerance or fanaticism, the kind that eventually culminates in social crisis, which breeds wars or mass killings. This is why in almost every nuclear and or extended family, we have a blend of both Christians, Muslims, and even traditional religious adherents among spouses, children, and or siblings, all living together in near perfect harmony. There are eminent Yoruba Muslim leaders, business and political elites, who are married, to Christian spouses. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for one. The wife isn't just an ordinary Christian, she's an ordained minister. Governors, Babatunde Raji Fashola is married to a Catholic wife. Former governor Ibikunle Amosun didn't just marry a Christian lady. The wife is the daughter of an Anglican bishop. Now, Abiola Jimobi, Isiaka Ajimobi, late governor for your state, also married a Christian wife. And the list is endless. There's no point going into all of that. So now, going back to one of the issues this Kadi raised about, Muslims being unable to resolve their family issues. So, for instance, if the first family, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the wife, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, have issues, I'm just speaking hypothetically. So, and they take the matter to a Sharia court, and the wife being a Christian or ordained Christian minister, so Senator Remi Tinubu should submit herself to Sharia court. Just ponder over that. But let's make progress. That's actually a very small issue. Now, if these individuals are allowed to have their way and prevail, that's the proponents of this clamor for Sharia courts, if they're allowed to succeed and have their way, how long before Sharia courts, transmute or morph into full-blown Islamic states with the introduction of religious police, like I mentioned earlier, that's Hizbah in the north, shutting down of events and recreational centers, banning schools from opening during fasting, as is currently going on in some states in the north. Arresting and flogging citizens for non-adherence to religious rules. Also, state governors organizing mass weddings, as is the norm in parts of the north, rather than organizing MSMEs, events where you train them on skills acquisition and give them seed capital to go start business, thereby employing people, reducing poverty and all of that. No, they are engaging in mass weddings on a large scale and giving them, a starter pack, bed and stuff so that they can have more kids and then deepen the poverty in the north. How long before we get to that point? How long, before we begin to have this Hizbah police going on the streets, arresting people for not covering, having full people wearing veils, both in private and in public, and before it eventually degenerates into the spread of sectarian crisis and eventually terrorism and insurgency? How long? So I ask again, how did we get here? I was raised by a civil servant father who was also an ordained reverend minister. In all of the years I knew my father till he died, at 82 years in 2012, I never once heard him speak derogatively about Muslims. How could he? He would be a bloody hypocrite. Among my father's siblings, 2 were Muslims, and they related perfectly in the bond of brotherhood. I was born, lived, and had my formative years in Ibadan, smack right in the midst of all religions. Yet, not once did I ever witness or encounter religious intolerance, tensions, or crisis. We, Muslims, Christians, traditional religious practitioners, celebrated each other's religious events with affection and camaraderie. No parents ever told one set of children to avoid the other. We went to schools together, we ate together, and played together. I attended a Catholic high school that had students of all religious adherents. Going further, the now humongously spectacular annual Ojúde festival, many do not know, is a culmination and celebration of the end of the Eid al-Fitr Muslim festival. Yet, although originally strictly an Ijebu affair, indeed, this has since morphed into a pan-Yoruba cultural, entertainment, and economic fiesta, attracting attendees and rave reviews globally. Meanwhile, I must admit, quite sadly, that until I relocated to Abuja as a full-grown adult, it was until then that I was confronted with the stark reality of religious extremism as a serious threat to Nigeria's corporate existence. So let me cut to the chase. Let me get right to the heart of the issue. What exactly are the proponents of Sharia courts to southwest Nigeria? What are they after? I'll tell you. It has got absolutely nothing to do with issues of Yoruba Muslim interest. That's arrant nonsense, and it's a smoke screen. Here are some vital socio-economic statistics which confers competitive advantage on the southwest region of Nigeria. And these are the things that these people seek to destroy. Number 1, southwest economy. Lagos State's GDP is 41 trillion naira, or US dollars 29 billion. Almost 27% of the entire Nigerian GDP. And Lagos economy is the 7th largest in the whole of Africa as of 2022. Lagos economy also accounts for over 50% of Nigeria's non-oil revenues. Now, Lagos State is to Nigeria what London is to the United Kingdom, what California and New York cities are to America, and what Beijing is to China. It is the heartbeat of our nation's economy. Now, with a visionary and competent leadership in the 6 southwest states, these 6 states of the southwest of Nigeria can become the largest economy in Africa in a mere 10 years. The competitive advantage of the southwest includes financial services. That's the heart of financial services. ICT, all the fintechs are there. All the big tech companies are in Lagos. Manufacturing, the big manufacturing companies are there. Oil and gas. I mean, Dangote Petrochemical Refining Company is situated in Lagos. Last year, Dangote paid a whopping 402 billion naira in taxes. Another competitive advantage of the Southwest is agriculture, cash crops, and all whatnot. And of course, culture and entertainment. That's another competitive advantage. In December last year, Lagos State alone earned $71.6 million just on tourism, hotels and accommodation. 71.6 million naira, or 107 billion naira just in 1 month. Lagos State earned. So, and that shows the enormous potentials of Lagos State as a favorite tourist destination. There are hundreds of Europeans, Americans, and Asians who are itching to come and experience the Lagos cultural and entertainment phenomenon, even as I speak. And even as I speak here, there are groups of local tourists boarding aircraft and train rides from Lagos to various, southwest states on tourist visits. The second thing they're after, our educational advantage. There are more universities in the southwest region than the other regions. Indeed, Ogun and Osun states alone have more universities than the entire northwest and northeast regions put together. Why? The late premier of southwest Nigeria, Obafemi Awolowo, drilled it into our fathers, the strategic necessity of education as a tool for human emancipation from the ravages of poverty, ignorance, and servitude. This is the reason why Yorubas prioritize education and learning far more importantly than religion. Now, the third thing these people are after, our leading status in the professions, economics, medicine, law, engineering, pharmacy, banking, accounting, auditing, journalism, insurance, stockbroking, computing, creative arts, name it, literature. In some of the above-mentioned professions, Yorubas were either the first in Nigeria or even in Africa. Professor Taslim Elias, that I mentioned earlier, Nigeria's first Attorney General, was the first African to bag a Doctor of Laws degree and the first African to become the first African and the only one till date to become the president of the International Court of Justice. No African has done that after him. The first Nigerian lawyer was Mr. Shapara Williams in 1800s, in the late 19th century. The first Nigerian medical doctors were Nathaniel King, Dr. Natalia King, Dr. John Randall, Dr. Lee Shodipe, and Dr. Oguntola Shapara. These were medical doctors in the 19th century. Now, the first chartered accountant was Mr. Akintola Williams, the first chartered accountant in Nigeria. The first architect, the first civil engineer, the first Nigerian to be licensed as a civil engineer was Sir Herbert Macaulay, licensed in 1893 as a civil engineer. Now, Professor Wole Soyinka remains the first and only Nobel Prize winner in literature. No, I think there has been a couple of other Africans, but he was the first African to bag the Nobel Prize in literature. Professor Ekundayo Adeyemi is the first professor of architecture in Nigeria. F.R.A. Williams started the first law firm in Nigeria in partnership with Bode Thomas and Remilekun Fani-Kayode. Now, Akintola Williams accounting firm is the first in Nigeria. Professor Akimabo Gunje is the first professor of geography in Africa and the first president of International Geographical Union. Now, Professor Mrs. Olubala Babalola is the first professor of quantity surveying in the entirety of Africa. Professor Babs Aliu Fafunwa is the first professor of education in Nigeria. Professor Adeton Ogunseye is the first Nigerian professor of library and information science. Mr. Talabi Braithwaite is the first African to qualify as a chartered insurer in Nigeria. Abat Macaulay, Sir Abat Macaulay, was the first Nigerian to drive a car. Mrs. Fumilayo Ransom Kuti was the first female to drive a car in Nigeria. In fact, we have a professor of development economics, the first in Nigeria, who is a Yoruba man, Professor Banji Oyeyinka. Now, even amongst our religious leaders, Pastor Enoch Adejare Adeboye has a PhD in applied mathematics. Pastor W.F. Kumuyi was a first-class graduate of mathematics from the University of Ibadan. And, Pastor D.K. Olukoya has a PhD in molecular genetics. In fact, is the first Nigerian or first African, to clone genes. Pastor D.K. Olukoya. And even from the Muslim, religion, Professor Ishaq Oloyede is the professor of Islamic studies. He was once the VC of University of Ilorin and currently the registrar of JAMB. And then Professor Ishaq Akintola, also a professor of Islamic studies, is also a lecturer, at the Lagos State Universities. So the Yorubas lead in the professions. And these are the things, these people are after. They want to introduce religious extremism so that we remove our focus from that and focus on what is not important. The fourth thing is our socio-cultural, entertainment, and tourist industries that I alluded to earlier. And this has become a global phenomenon. Most of our youth in entertainment, Whiskey, Davido, to some extent Burna Boy, Thames, Erastar, these are all doing great stuff, in the entertainment industry. How do you do anything in entertainment if you're not in Lagos, for instance? So the southwest of Nigeria has become the hub for theater, for music, entertainment, cinema, and so on. Now, what are our core values? The fifth thing they're after, they want to destroy Yoruba core values. Yorubas are renowned for our values, the Omoluabi ethos, symbolized by saying such as, a good name is better than silver and gold. Remember whose son you are, and so on. So a model Yoruba prioritizes, number one, positive values. A good name is better than silver and gold. Strong positive values. Beko Ransom Kuti, Gane Fawebi, Fela Anikulapo Kuti, championing the cause of the underprivileged. Number two thing, a model Yoruba, values is learning and education. Great learning and education. Then third, professionalism, and industry. So in the top three, you notice religion and money does not even feature. That is the value that we appreciate in Yoruba land, and these are the things these people are seeking to destroy. The sixth and final thing I'll talk about is a stable, transformative, and qualitative governance models that has been the envy of the rest of the country, way back from the First Republic. When Awolowo started free education in southwest Nigeria, the other parts of Nigeria came to replicate it. When Lagos, under Tinubu, introduced a tax reform that became very successful, other parts of Nigeria came there to imitate it. So the foregoing, in my considered opinion, are the ultimate targets of those propagating Sharia courts in the southwest, and they must be stopped, and the time to act is now. The concept, I will speak briefly on the concept of states, of secular states, and why separation of the state from religion is a strategic requirement for human development and economic prosperity. Why is it important to separate the state, that is the government, from religious tenets and practices? Religion is hinged on faith and belief in an invisible God. The two dominant religions teach faith in one God who is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. The words of God, the words of this God are infallible and are deemed sacred and inviolable. Yet, these are subjective and largely are inconsistent, mostly with practical realities of modern societies. Let me cite a couple of examples. The Bible that I know fairly well, slavery is taught in the Bible, in Leviticus. It says when your slave has served you for 49 years, by the 50th year, which is called the year of Jubilee, you set them free. My question is, can you practice slavery in Nigeria now? So if I say Christian, I say I have a slave, what do you think will happen? Another topic is witchcraft. The Bible says in Exodus 22:18, you shall not allow a witch to live. So if I dream and I see somebody in my dream and I wake up and say, oh, you're a witch, and I go get a dagger or get a stone and kill the person, what do you think will happen? And of course, you know the views of the Bible, you know, on lesbian, gays, and all of that. Jungle justice. So there is enough room for jungle justice in every religion. So in a plural society, wherein are people of different religious beliefs, cultures, traditions, and languages, enlightened citizens owe it a duty to adopt a set of codified laws and rules that are fair, equitable, just, and non-discriminatory, which all subscribe to, devoid of religious inclinations. If we all bring our religious practices and begin to say, my religion says I must do this, my religion, there's going to be anarchy. So what wise, sane people do in a society such as Nigeria, such as the Southwest, where you have different religions, is say, guys, put your religions in abeyance. Practice your religion in your mosque, or your churches, or your synagogue, or your shrines. But when you come to the society, let us have the law. And then we set up governments that enforce the law. And everybody plays by the rule. So that is why the Constitution must always be the supreme law of the nation, and by which all, without exception, you know, are governed and administered. If we therefore submit a society such as the Southwest to religious dogma, then the dawn of anarchy is upon us. It's only a matter of time. For context, the state of Israel, where thousands of Nigerians visit on yearly pilgrimage, is a constitutional democracy. Israel is not governed via religion. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, though a monarchy, is modernizing rapidly, even as I speak here. I stumbled on this video where the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, declared that they have to move away from religious extremism and beliefs and open up to the rest of the world. Watch this.
We only want to go back to what we were, the moderate Islam that is open to the world, open to all the religions. %70 of the Saudi people are less than 30 years old. And quite frankly, we will not waste 30 years of our lives in dealing with extremist ideas. We will destroy them today. We want to live a normal life, a life that translates our moderate religion, our good customs. We coexist and live with the world and contribute to the development of our country and the world. This is something that there are steps that we have taken in the past that are clear. I believe that we will eradicate the rest of extremism very soon.
Now, why is it important for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to become open, tolerant, and modernized? Because tourists avoid extremist countries, and investors will likewise avoid such countries. Since Mohammed bin Salman began his modernization program in Saudi Arabia, the kingdom has become host to several global economic and sports activities. Golf. Now, the Saudi Football League is attracting the likes of Ronaldo, Benzema, and so many others. Boxing contests are being held there. Even the FIFA World Cup in 2030 will be held in Saudi Arabia. Cinemas are now available in Saudi Arabia. Women can now drive. So women's rights have become an issue in Saudi Arabia. Women can now drive, and so on and so forth. So I go back to the issue of Southwest, Sharia courts demands. We Yorubas are cosmopolitan, civilized, and enlightened people. We believe in God, but are not religious extremists. We are accommodating and open to all from everywhere in the world who wish to live, do business, and contribute to our region's peace and socio-economic progress. I strongly impress it on our governors and traditional rulers to safeguard whatever is left of our values, cultures, traditions, and economy from external corruption using internal collaborators. So while I say on this program all the time that I believe in a new Nigeria, but absolutely not a new Nigeria that is governed by retrogressive practices and religious rule. Never. Therefore, once again, all the governors of the Southwest region must rise up in unison and make it abundantly clear the Southwest region will respect the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria, in Chapter 1, Section 10, that guarantees that no state or federal government of Nigeria shall promote any religion. Nigeria is thus essentially, a secular state. And that the rule of law, shall be the supreme law of the land. Let it be abundantly clear to all, religious laws under any guise shall not have a place in our legal jurisprudence in the Southwest. Promoting any religion at all is misguided and a misplaced priority. Promoting one religion over others is an invitation for chaos and anarchy. Worse, using taxpayers' money to promote pilgrimages to Israel or Mecca is wrong on all levels. God is a God of love, unity, and truth and justice. Yet, we are all preaching about the superiority of one religion over and above the other, and about going to heaven. That's fine. But we're here living in hate, disunity, and chaos, killing one another over absolutely nothing. I think that's insanity. I have spent the better part of the last 20 years studying what makes nations great and what makes others poor. There is not a highly developed country that is governed by religion. The great countries of the world, all of them without exception, not one of them is a theocracy. Not one of them is governed by religion. China is a perfect example. And I want you to watch this video.
Imagine walking into a hospital where the future is not just a vision, but a reality. Above your head, sleek, silent machines glide along tracks. Like something out of a sci-fi movie, patients and visitors barely notice, as these devices move with precision, weaving through the corridors. Their destination? Welcome to the world of smart hospitals in China. These machines are automatic medication delivery systems tirelessly working to ensure life-saving medicine and medical supplies reach their destinations with unmatched speed and accuracy, from the pharmacy to the nurse stations and even directly to patient wards. This seamless operation eliminates human error and frees up medical staff to focus on patient care. Its efficiency in motion, a perfect blend of technology and compassion, and just one example of how innovation is transforming healthcare as we know it. These systems operate 24/7, tirelessly connecting different departments, ensuring no time is wasted when it matters most.
Now, I've also studied the countries of the world that are poor. Almost all of them, without exception, promote religious doctrine. And you have Syria, you have Afghanistan, you have Pakistan, you have Somalia, and all those kind of places. Now, in conclusion, these are my recommendations as a roundup. Number one, the regulation and certification of organizations and preachers of all religions must be set up by states, and it has become a priority. I think it is long overdue. State governors regulate religious practices more stringently. Lagos has led, again, in this, albeit peripherally, in a strict regulation of noise pollution, traffic nuisance, and so on by religious groups, and it is welcome. But we should go a step further. Preaching religious intolerance, hate-mongering, sectarianism, divisive messages should be totally outlawed. Number two, religious bodies cannot constitute a law unto themselves. No. Governments must have serious oversight over the conduct of preachers through an omnibus code of conduct framework. And I urge particularly the National Assembly and the state houses of assemblies to convene a committee to deliberate and proffer practical solutions to this. The Constitution actually mandates the legislative arm of government to make laws for the security and good governance of society. However, what are our National Assembly and State House of Assembly doing? The members at the Federal and State House of Assembly are daily embroiled in a show of shame, gyrating from one meaningless scandal to the other. Now, everything I've said are just my thoughts, and I don't claim to have all the answers or solutions. I urge honest and patriotic public intellectuals to speak more on this issue. I have lots of Muslim friends. Some of these, I consider them to be brothers and sisters. And I harbor no shred of bigotry against any of this in my heart. Yet, I say a resounding no to Sharia courts or panels or whatever name it is called in Yoruba land. It is an ill wind that will spell doom to us, period. Thank you. Now, that's the end of the presentation for today. Like I always say, change requires action. Positive change requires positive action. I believe in a new Nigeria, where we all do everything positive that we need to do to build that new Nigeria. And like I said, a new Nigeria where, the supreme law of the land, the Constitution, is primus inter pares. I will never subscribe to a new Nigeria where religious rule has a role to play. Now, thank you for spending your time with me. Follow me on my various social media handles. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can watch the full version of this video and all the other videos that are there. Drop me your comments. I'd love to hear from you. And I'll see you next time. My name remains Olawale Oluwade. Thank you and see you next time. Bye for now.